to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. Before I introduce you to my guests, I want to know if you've heard about a little party I'm throwing. Yes, it's just around the corner, and you are invited. You are invited to our book launch party. Yes, and thanks to the pandemic, we're having it virtually on Zoom, and it's free. That's right. The book launch is here. The live event is December 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I sure wish that you would plan to be with me and my co-authors. We're going to have Sarah Brennan, Sandra Funk, Jamie Lieberman, Desi Cresswell, Amber De La Garza, Amanda Berlin, Kim Merlitti, Eileen Hahn, and Darla Powell. Talk about a lineup. Am I right? Pour your cocktail or your mocktail, whatever you like, and hang with us for an hour. I'd love for you to get to know these amazing women and the reasons why I invited them to share their expertise in the next book, A Well-Designed Business, The Power Talk Friday Experts, Volume 2. All right? And just in case, if you need just a little bit more reason to come and join us live for the party, I'll be giving away prizes for Luann Live. That's right, tickets and other goodies we will be giving away, but you've got to be there with us. So go to luannnigara.com/launch. Okay? When you go to that website, and you register, then when we have the Zoom link ready, we will email it to you so that you can be with us live on December 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. Now, today I am talking with Alex and Michelle Gage. Michelle was a buyer for Anthropologie before she switched gears to become an interior designer in Philadelphia. Alex is an engineer who joined Michelle's interior design firm as a project manager in January of 2020. Together, these two rock stars have developed Business Measurements, a software platform that integrates with your existing systems to give you easy access to the big financial picture and that big financial picture reporting that you need for your business, okay? Alex and Michelle remind me so much of Tom and Sarah Daniele. These are the two geniuses who created MyDoma Studio. Sarah was having a really hard time managing the ins and outs of her interior design business in the efficient way that she wanted to when she was running her own projects. And so together they developed MyDoma Studio in answer to that, just like Alex and Michelle have developed Business Measurements in answer to the challenge that Michelle was facing. All right. Now, we all know that MyDoma Studio helps you get paid, generate design packages, create proposals, and also purchase and do workroom orders. That's not all. It also helps with product sourcing, time tracking, and it even has a client portal. Find out more about MyDoma Studio by going to mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. And a little cheat sheet, they're having a Black Friday sale now, so make sure you get in on that as well. All right, now, let's learn about Alex and Michelle and figure out what exactly prompted Michelle to go to Alex on this and how together they came up with a solution that's pretty darn genius. Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes. And Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Hi, Luann. It's great to be here.
So you two are a particular power couple that I'm interested in because just like I mentioned in the intro, Sarah and Tom Daniele, Michelle, you come to your interior design business. You are intentional about making sure it's a business out the gate, and you're doing all the things on the back end of the business to do that. And then you have your husband, Alex, here with this engineering superpower that he can sort of make it easier for you. And so I love, love, love this. And we're going to pull it apart. But first, take us to you've left your corporate job and you are opening up your interior design firm. What was the thing that you were struggling with and intending to do that, was the brainchild of really getting yourself organized?
Yeah, so I have always been very numbers driven. As a child, like I had jobs at early ages, and I was always interested in finances and how my bank account, my small bank account, would grow as a kid. So one of the things that was really important to me when I left my corporate job was that I was making the same salary on my own that I was making while there. And obviously, I was a little naive to how I would go about doing that, how I could actually make that happen in the transition. But the thing that I really was diligent about was tracking the finances. So when I got design jobs, I would in Excel line item, the profit that I made from my services in that, track it every day, track it every week and every month to make sure that I was on target to hit that number that I was making in my previous buying role in the corporate world.
And the thing is, it's so funny because I've heard you. Of course, you guys were on Michelle Williams' podcast, Profit is a Choice. And I listened to that. And when you were describing working in your Excel spreadsheet every day, putting in all of your sales, do you know who else does that every single day to this day?
Tell me.
The Vin Man does this.
And I'm happy to be in that club. I will be aligned with him. That is super flattering.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, we have since moved to Market Sharp, which is this huge, robust platform. It would be like, MyDoma Studio for designers. This is Market Sharp. And it's not window treatment specific. There isn't, I keep saying to Sarah Daniele, could you just invent something for window treatment people? Please, please, please. Right. But barring that, we are out in the open waters there and trying to find anything. And we finally settled on Market Sharp. And I know, and Vin knows, somewhere in our minds, we know that this probably happens in Market Sharp. But he is like, no, ma'am, I've got my Excel spreadsheet and every single sale that comes in. We can have 10, 12 sales in a day. You know what I mean? I've got 3 salespeople working for us. Him and I are randomly selling as well. And every single day, it's part of the process. You hand the sale to Vin. He opens up his Excel spreadsheet. He puts the customer name in. He puts the date in. He puts the salesperson in. He puts the sales amount in. He puts the lead source, and then he puts whether it's an inside or an outside sale. And then he totals it. He divides it by the days of the month, and he says, we're projecting at $482,000 this month. And I'm like, it's the first day of the month. He's like, that doesn't matter. That's our projection.
That was my first 2 years after leaving my corporate job. I was toiling and toiling away with my little calculations in Excel and capturing all that information that he captures and just, taking what was in my head, putting it in a spreadsheet, and then doing some calculations to see, like, am I on track? Am I doing what I said I wanted to do when I left?
Right. So tell us about, I know there are colleagues listening, Michelle, that are like, well, what did you really want to track and how did that matter and why was it important? So tell us about some of the things that you wanted to track and the ways that you use the information. And then we'll get to how Alex came in and saved your life. But first, let's get through what it was you were trying to accomplish.
Sure. So I have separate documents where I was tracking, lead sources and whatnot. But the finances is what I really wanted to have a good grip on because I was coming from a salaried position. That's all I had ever known. And I didn't want to leave that job and make less. It was really important to me that we could, pay our bills and maintain the lifestyle and have the same money that I was making in my corporate career for myself. So I was tracking every dollar that came through clients. And obviously when I was getting started, they were smaller jobs. So they were, I was doing an hourly model and maybe there was a job was maybe like 3 hours. I was doing some consulting work, and then a larger job could, get to 50 or more. But I was tracking like every time a client paid me, and then every time I thought a client would move forward, so I could calculate that into my projection. If I land this client, I know that I will close my week making what I needed to make to hit my projection by the end of the year, so that in March I could be really diligent about getting to that year end goal and not, scrambling in October, pulling it all together and saying, I really hope I got there, but tracking it every day, every week to make sure. And then what it did was it held me accountable to follow up with people who maybe, took a week to get back to me, knowing like, I really need that job to hit that number. So I'm going to be diligent in my follow up. And I really need to like make sure that I land this so that my numbers stick. I was doing a few other freelance things in addition to working with design clients. I was writing for some online publications, writing some design trend pieces. So I could say, I need to crank out, 3 more design articles this month because design service sales were slow. So I could kind of see what my sources of income were and how much I needed each of them to pull in every day, every week, every month, so that I got to that big number at the end of the year.
And this is key. If you don't track where you're going, how do you know if you're on track to get where you want to be? I mean, It's just like so logical. And for me, I do understand it 100% because you've heard me, Michelle, say it on the show 1,000 times. Like, I can go and open up our Excel spreadsheet right now while I'm talking to you on the phone and see where we are month to date, year to date. I can track and open up September, October, November of any year since 1982 and see what we did that month. I mean, Vin, came out of the office in August and he just went, we had our biggest all-time August, all years, all. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's the kind of thing that all salespeople turn around, they all smile at each other, we all high five, it's like, yay, right? But at the same time, to your point of motivating you, he'll also come walking out of the office around the 10th of the month and he'll say, we're not tracking, our projection right now is not hitting break even. Or our projection right now is falling off our goal of 10 or 20,000. And we all look at each other and we're like, okay, go to the follow-up file.
Right,
it's like,
pick up the phone.
Yeah, we don't even think about it. We're just like, oh, okay, let's pull that pile of invoices out, like that pile of paperwork out. And you start, remember Candy Scott said years ago on the podcast, Fridays are dialing for dollars. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, let's dial for dollars now, and I love that you said that it keeps you accountable, because I think that as a window treatment salesperson, and knowing that I'm going to be responsible for closing 10, 20, 30, 40 sales a month, I think that you could say to yourself as a designer, well, it's different for us. I have 4 opportunities a month, and I'm not exactly going to call them every 2 weeks to see if they're going to go ahead with it. I don't really need to apply the same sales techniques as somebody who's got to bring in 20, 30 a month. But the point is, you do, right, Michelle?
Well, exactly. And I can specifically remember, going back to that time a few years ago where a client didn't get back to me the first time I emailed my follow-up and say like, hey, the consult went really well. You're thinking you're going to move forward. They might not have gotten back to me on that first follow-up, but the second or third, and then they'd hire me. And there was a huge lesson in that, people are busy and maybe that wasn't the priority at the moment, or their timeline shifted, or, things come up. But being front of mind, it's not that the first email doesn't get answered and it's a no. So it really pushed me to keep following up, and then I'd land the job and they'd hire me, and maybe they'd hire me for more work down the line, or they'd refer me. So really not letting go of those initial conversations that you have. And the document, the Excel document, was holding me accountable to that. It was like, well, you need to land, 2 of these 3. So start emailing.
Which one is it going to be? Well, and I say it all the time. No answer is not no.
Right.
If you must adopt that policy. When someone doesn't answer you, it does not mean no. So often, to your point, it just means I was busy then. Maybe my kid got strep throat that week, and my whole schedule went haywire, and the last thing I could do was focus on your design proposal.
Right.
But it doesn't mean I don't want to do it. And it sounds like you've had the experience. I know I've had the experience time after time after time, and I've seen it in the emails with my sales reps as well. The answer is, thank God you emailed me again, or thank God you called me again, because I've been meaning to do this,
Right.
and I've been swamped. And it's
Right.
like, oh yeah, thank God I did. Yeah. Right.
And I'm focusing on it, every work hour of the day, and they're doing their work. So it's my
Exactly.
major focus. So if I can, stay top of mind and be in their inbox or in their voicemail and just checking in, saying,
Mhm.
hey, are you thinking of moving forward? That helps my bottom line increase. The other thing that it did was, so I was doing some writing as well. In addition to the design services, I could say, I need to write a few more articles this month. And that was something that was a little bit more in my control to do. But it also let me, kick my feet up and take a seat if my month was looking really good and my projections were looking really good, and I wanted to, God forbid, take 2 days off and go on vacation, which is a thing of the past now, but take a few days off and not feel like I was sacrificing my salary to do it.
Right, right, right. Tell us a little bit about the articles that you're writing. It sounds like two times, it sounds like to me that you are referencing that as a direct source of leads. It's almost like, okay, if I write another article, there's going to be some activity happening. Is that what you're saying, Michelle?
Not necessarily. So truthfully, it was more that I was getting paid to write those articles.
Oh, okay. So it's another income stream for you.
Yeah, it was a secondary income stream, because when I left my corporate job, my plan was to do design work, but I didn't have a design business with clients knocking down my door. I had a couple of people who were interested in what I was doing, or could potentially be a client, but I didn't leave with a roster list of clients. I left a corporate buying job. I didn't leave another design firm, or have that specific experience or exposure to potential clients just yet. So what I actually did, which I would recommend to any designer starting out, any of your baby designers, is I would write for publications to kind of establish myself as an expert. So
Right.
I would write for, Domino, for example, and I would write on trends, and I would write on designs, and I did get paid for that, which helped, make that Excel document a little beefier with the finances, but it established me as an expert. And there would be occasional activity from it, but more than that, it would just allow me to put it on my website and speak to it and say, like, hey, I know what I'm doing. You should hire me.
Okay. And is that as easy as it sounds? Is just, emailing them and saying, hey, I'd like to write as an expert and will you pay me?
Not necessarily, and it's a little bit harder now that the publication world is always changing.
Right.
So in the last couple of years, I would say it's definitely leaning towards having more freelancers. So in that sense, you have a little bit of a leg up, where it's not necessarily that they're looking for full-time employees; they're looking for contributors.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy writing, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So if you have the writing skills coupled with the design, there's definitely an opportunity. But even for something that you could get published in, but you're not being paid, you can always offer quotes. You can always offer to be a source of providing quotes or lines within the writer's article of my favorite white paint colors or hot
Right.
trends in velvet. You don't have to write the story to contribute to the story.
Well, and I think too, I think it's awesome that it was part of your revenue plan in order to supplement the corporate income. But I think there's no reason not to approach any regional magazines or whatever it might be as a columnist, even if you aren't getting paid, because you are establishing yourself as the expert. It's no different than if you put an ad in that magazine every month for a year, somebody eventually calls you. But, writing and talking about your topic is like putting the ad in the magazine as well, right?
Absolutely. And then I think the best thing you can do is milk it from that standpoint and speak to it on your website and on your
Right.
social media channels, to just make the best use of that connection that you have. But I think press breeds press. I am all for, getting your name out there. And as it gets out there, it not only attracts clients, but it attracts other publications who have seen you be established as an expert, and they might reach out to you as well for, small quotes that could lead to larger print features.
Right.
So there's definite benefits to it. Luckily for myself, I was able to get paid early on to write these stories, but it led to other things where, there's a lot of press opportunities that, just help to get your name out there, and you never know what's going to come of it. So it's always a good strategy.
So take us to, you do come out of corporate. You don't have a client base to say, hi, I'm in business. What did you do, Michelle? I want to continue to talk about the different other metrics that you tracked, but what did you do to stir up business out the gate and then create the need to track all this information?
Right. So I think one of the biggest things that was helpful to me was I designed my house. So I worked on, making my house what I would want to appeal to a client. So I love bold patterns and prints and velvets and, loud colors and wallpaper, brass, brass metal. And I put that into my house, and I got professional photos of that and then pitched that to press so that would get my name out there. People would see, my style and what I was capable of doing in the design world, put that work out there, something that looks so much like me, and have people be attracted to it.
Okay, so many designers have done that. Darla Powell comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Darla Powell Interiors in Miami, of course, Wingnut Social, the podcast, then Marketing Guru, and the same thing. She came out of the gate. And designed her own house, documented it, put it in social, had professional photographs taken, and it is a valid place and to launch your business, because you can select everything that really does. You don't have the client saying, I don't like that, or I can't afford that. You
Right.
figure out your own way, right?
Right. And it's the truest representation of your style. And I have found, I'm no longer in that house that quote unquote launched my design business. I'm in a different house, and both have been photographed. And I found, my homes compared to client homes, my homes get more attention and more press. There's something about seeing inside a designer's home and making the space so you and exactly what you would want. So a lot of the press that I have gotten over the years has been specific to my home. It's definitely been for client work as well, but there's a little bit more of a story when it's your house. You can tell the story a little bit better. So I highly recommend to anyone, whether you're, in an apartment or in a home, whatever you're in, style it, decorate it, design it, what have you, take your photos and then try to circulate it and get it out there. Someone will be interested and they will call you.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So take us a little further down the line. You're working in your Excel spreadsheet. You're tracking every dollar that comes in. Are you also tracking your expenses? Like what are you doing, and what are the metrics that you are interested, that are keeping you focused on reaching your financial goals?
So I was tracking every dollar in and every dollar out. When I was starting, my overhead was much lower than it is now. So the dollars out weren't as high. And I should mention, when I was starting, I wasn't purchasing for clients. I wasn't purchasing furniture for them. So it was truly tracking service fees that came in, my design fees. Any expenses, they were tracked out as well. Later down the line, as I started purchasing for clients, it got crazy complicated to do it in Excel. So we started, this new method to track it all more diligently, and then also track taxes, because what I had learned as I was tracking in Excel at the end of the year, I beat the salary that I had when I was in my corporate job. By a few $1,000s, I surpassed it. And I was super excited, but I forgot about that self-employment tax. So it took it right down to like a flat even, flat to last year. And it's, I hit my goal and that was fine, but I was jazzed for a moment that I surpassed it. Oh my God. In my first year, I left my corporate job and I'm killing it. And, self-employment tax is different than the tax you're getting in your salaried position. So that brought me down to earth and grounded me a little bit. But then we found a new way to track taxes as we go, so that you do have the truest representation of what that number is.
Now, do you do either the profit first or a version of profit first, where every time you sell a project, you pull the taxes out of it and it sits in a separate account so that you're never confusing that with either money for product or money for operations or money for profit?
We had done a similar model and then transitioned. Alex, you could probably speak to it a little bit better, what we're doing now.
Yeah, so we definitely had a version of it. Certainly didn't follow all of the rules with the numerous bank accounts, but we had a version that worked for us for a little while. But what the end solution that's business measurements today, we can get to more detail later, gives you that information in a dashboard. We still actually just keep one bank account for the whole business, but we have information that's in front of us every single day where we know how that breaks down. So even though there may be a large dollar amount in the bank, we know between taxes, credit cards, open purchase orders, all of these line items of things are outstanding. So we have that clear picture of what's cash in our pocket, even though the number in the bank account's much higher. So it kind of simplifies the banking aspect of it without losing the information that's needed that the profit first method gives you.
Okay, I love it. So this is eventually where we're going is Michelle is working her business, she is tracking her information, and it becomes, just too cumbersome in an Excel spreadsheet because of the detail of the data that you want. And this is the relationship to like Sarah Daniele and Tom Daniele. Is you have this experience and this expertise, and you now figure out a computer software system, you build it that helps Michelle see all of this. And so what I'm hearing in there, Alex, is that where someone else might sit with, whether it's, I know 3 is pretty much the minimum on up to 6 bank accounts if you're following the profit first system, and it's actually in different accounts. And what you're saying is you're looking at, if you look at the bank account, you're looking at one sum number, but you and Michelle are daily looking at your business measurements portal, and that's showing you the detail of what's in each bucket that has to go out for taxes, for payroll, for product buy, for blah blah blah, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That was it took from where we started at the Excel spreadsheet stage to what it is developed was really trial and error. To Michelle's point of being surprised by taxes, we had a perspective from the very beginning of the business and personally as well, to never let a mistake happen twice. It's like, okay, well, that hurt. Okay, what are we going to do where we never, ever, ever have that thing happen to us again? Okay, and then, it's just been this wash and repeat. That hurt. That was a thing we learned. Okay, what are we going to do to not have that happen? And that's kind of where business measurements kind of turned from what used to be a simple Excel spreadsheet of add up what we've made per year, how many days in the year, take a fraction. Okay, I think I'm going to earn this at the end, to really, find times that, for instance, that math didn't work, or we had learned another thing. Sales tax started to become a significant ongoing expense because of selling much more furniture. And as we kept adding to it, it just sort of like, okay, well, stick that in the tool. I want that information every single day, or however often I could possibly want it. Was really what the evolution kind of allowed us to build what worked for us. And we hear listening to other podcasts and yours and talking to colleagues that these are problems that everybody has. It's not as if we were making a thing that was just Michelle Gage Interiors focused. It was like kind of any business anywhere could really benefit from this, and that's when it became clear there was an opportunity to offer it to other people.
I love it. I love it. So it's so funny because my assistant, Lisa, if she listens to this particular episode, this is like, she calls it the hub. So when she came to start working for me, it's like, I've got all these things, all these balls in the air, all these plates flying. And she says to me, and I don't even know if it's a Google Doc. I don't have the slightest idea what it is. I know how to get to it because she has a link in my calendar every day. I click on it and I get to it. But I think it's something in Drive. I have no idea. Okay. But it started out as simply, Luann, I think we need to have a place to list your podcast. Oh, okay. Like the people that you're scheduled to interview and the people that you've already interviewed, but they haven't aired yet. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, at least because I got like 19 notebook pads around paper with these lists on it. I actually had it on a whiteboard for the first 3 years. Okay. Before she started working for me. And I'm like, okay, you want to put it there? That's great. Then the next thing, it's like, well, I think we need to keep track of which sponsors have appeared in which episodes so that you make sure that all 6 get one spot each week. I'm like, oh, yeah, we have to do that. She's like, well, I'll just put it in the hub. And I swear to goodness, this hub now, it's like a bear that could just drive down the road by itself. It's like,
right.
And every single time I say, Lisa, I don't know where to find it. She goes, Luann, it's in your hub.
Well, and the thing I think that's so similar to that and what Alex is saying, when I left my corporate job, I didn't just leave my, guaranteed salary behind. I left the reporting that this large corporation would provide to me every Monday.
Yeah.
We would get reports. I was a buyer. We would get reports on what was selling well, what wasn't selling well, our markdown strategy. We would get these reports presented to us by an entire financial planning team that created them. I am a solo or was a solo. I didn't have an entire financial team that was creating reports for me, but I still wanted that information. And one of the examples that always sticks out in my mind in one of those design Facebook groups, I saw somebody comment about how they knew they were ready to hire. Someone was asking, I think I need to hire, but I don't know how. Team, designers, friends, how did you know? And they said, my accountant told me. And I thought, well, I don't want my accountant to tell me that I'm in the position to hire. I want to come to that decision on my own with the information that I have. I don't meet with my accountant daily. I meet with my accountant quarterly. I want these reports every day or every week so I know I'm ready to hire and I'm making the informed decisions that I need to scale my business.
And this is the crux of it, right? This is the crux of it, is really understanding the numbers that you have and the reports at your disposal to make those evaluations on what you can or you cannot do. So, and I love that analogy, Michelle. I can just picture you, in your corporate job, opening up your email every Monday, and there it is. And now all you're doing is you're using your superpower to analyze the information that you've been given, right? To say, okay, we're not going to buy any more of these things because nobody's buying them, right? So take us further into it, Michelle. So we learned the lessons of not having necessarily accounted for taxes. What are some of the other, I guess what I would love for you to do is tell me some of the things that you like that. So maybe it's the joy of looking at your numbers. How about the pipeline? I think pipeline projection is a tough thing for people to understand, because what do you do to project pipeline as opposed to hope pipeline?
Well, pipeline is a good one, but so is purchase orders.
Okay.
Because, a vendor like Krabbit, for example, we love, they don't take 100% up front. Sometimes they'll take 50% up front and 50% upon delivery. And that became really difficult to manage within each client job. Some vendors will take 100% up front, some upon delivery, some do a split. And we had collected all of the money for the client's design purchases that we were going to be making on their behalf. And we didn't necessarily know when the vendor was going to take that money from us. We would sign the purchase order and, give them the money that they needed. But sometimes when connecting them to our, credit card, they would take half up front, not full. So I was left with this bank account of gobbledygook because I didn't know whose money it was. Was some of it my profit? Was some of it allocated for purchase orders? Was some of it allocated towards just the second half of placing that purchase order? The payment upon deposit, upon delivery. So it became really difficult to understand in our bank account what money was ours, what money belonged to another client, what money was earmarked for something else. And then, in addition to, managing the pipeline, knowing how many projects I needed to have at a time. When I was starting out just as myself, I was very eager for the day that I'd be able to hire, but I didn't necessarily know financially when that would come without looking at those reports. So that helped me to say, okay, if I can get, one more client a month, it seems like that can sustain a part-time hire. And then as I get more clients, I can make that person full-time and have the confidence that I could grow my team based on the finances that were coming in or the finances I knew I had to hit.
So I have a question in there. That's news to me that you said that. So for instance, with Krabbit, they have your credit card, you place an order, they collect 50%, and they just show up and collect the other 50% when they ship the product to you. There's no communication, there's no authorization on your part, that you give the authorization at the beginning and it happens whenever they're ready to do it?
I'm going to have Alex speak to that because he handles that portion now. Alex, is that still accurate?
Yeah, it is. That's at least the way that our terms are set up with them. That we're giving them our credit card, and the second charge happens whenever it ships. They've usually informed us when it's coming, but it kind of is a waiting game to show when the transaction shows up.
Interesting. Okay.
So all vendors have different terms.
That would give Vinny hives. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Well, and yeah, you're alerted, and it's in your email with every other email you have to. So it just having
the thing.
having it in one place is helpful.
Yeah, that's that. I know that there's Kravit of all people is not just going to charge you without letting you know in any way.
Not.
But
Right.
when I think about the influx of emails, if I were a designer and I was managing 5 or 6 accounts over a 3 or 4 month period, clients over a 3 or 4 or 5 month period, maybe. But when I think about the volume that you strive for, I know the volume that we do. And it's funny because his process, we have gone to, we've done everything. We've done from net 30 to blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And now because we are financially healthy, and what we do is we do pay in full when we order for probably 85% to 90% of our purchases, because of course he's very smart. He's negotiated an extra discount for that, which is a tip for everybody. Okay. And so, but the thing is, on the accounts that we are not, they still have to send us an invoice by email, and then it has to be reviewed by someone. It has to be reviewed by 2 people plus him. And on Thursday, it's due bills. So 2 people review the bills and make sure that the balance that they're saying, whoever it may be, is accurate, and that it is our invoice and all of that. And then he looks at it at the end of the day, Thursday, and he okays the ones to pay. And then on Friday, it goes back to the admin who makes all the phone calls on Friday. Hi, I'm calling to pay the balance on this invoice. Use the credit card. Hi, I'm calling to pay the balance on this invoice. Use the credit card. You know what I mean? So because I have to say that we find mistakes often enough that it is not something that we would just say, okay, just collect it whenever you want, because there are mistakes. They do mistakes. And do you guys have something in place that, yes, they've emailed you and said they're going to check it? Do you always confirm that the amount is correct and then okay, let it go through? Or are you checking it after the fact? Or are you possibly not checking that the balance has been the proper amount?
We are absolutely checking it now. In the early days, we were checking it in the early days, but in the early days when it was just me and I was juggling a very large client load for one person, it led me to be accounting every single day. And that was the thing that was kind of bogging me down and keeping me from working on the business, because I was too far in the business. I was too far. It was just me. It was anytime an order got placed or confirmed, I was just any invoicing type email that came through pushed me to that Excel document where I was doing my manual math or using my formulas, and it just was becoming too much for one person who wears 75 hats to do. And it kept me from working on the business, growing it, building a team, doing marketing, doing press, things like that. So that's where, down the line, we had a system in place, and, the system we have in place now. But doing all of that and getting our arms around that huge bear allowed me to hire Alex. So a few years into the business, Alex left his corporate career after, 8 years of being an engineer because the finances looked right for it. He left at the beginning of this year, beginning of 2020.
Wow.
So he assists with all of that now. Thank you. It was, I'll say a difficult time because January of 2020, he leaves his job, his salaried position. March of 2020, there's a global pandemic. And I kid you not, without business measurements, we would be freaking out, freaking out. I listened to your podcast, which I loved, talking about all of the complications that COVID had caused with your, installers being, sick or falling off, like different, like crazy stuff that happens to businesses, but mixed with COVID is just impossible to manage. And we had some of that as well, contractors who got sick or weren't allowed in clients' homes, difficulties that are not normal for a small business to run. It's already difficult to manage your pipeline as a small business, but couple that with, oh, you can't be in anybody's house. You can't actually be interfacing with them. Everyone's holding on to their cash right now, in the early days of the pandemic, which obviously our industry has seen a flip, which is fantastic.
Right.
But Alex had left his job 2 months later, global pandemic. Like, we had prepared for the, there were whispers of a recession. We had prepared for that. We had heard that a recession might be coming. We had no clue what a global pandemic would do to our business. And without business measurements, honestly, I don't know how we would have been able to get through it without having such a firm understanding of where we were financially.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so valuable. It really is. It's that key peace of mind part, right? Because as human beings, we can go off the deep end and down rabbit holes and things where we get worried or stressed or uncertain about what's happening. But when you come back and you just look at the numbers, you're like, okay, stop freaking out. Right. This is fine. We've got this. You know what I'm saying? We can do this. We don't rest, Right. Like I said in the show, we worked our butts off marketing, and yay for us that we did that.
Well, and we took your advice early on where you were talking about, cutting whatever expenses you could cut.
Mm-hmm.
So, calling whatever, company we had some kind of ongoing subscription or yearly expense with, and either getting rid of it or anything unnecessary, we, immediately took out.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that we could do with that information, and without having that information, we wouldn't have known where we needed to go next.
Right.
And there's an interesting piece of it that, so they're definitely, Luann, you said, you can look at the numbers and feel like, we're okay. I think there's actually kind of a scary but very, very valuable piece of information we had when we looked at numbers, and we looked at each other and like how are we going to how do we actually survive? Like when it in March, and no inquiries, no projects moving forward, no orders, we knew both when we were okay and we knew when we were really not okay.
Exactly.
And It was that we knew that the day that happened, or that within the week that happened, versus 2 months later, like, oh my gosh, I lost all of March and April. How am I going to make my year? Right. We knew it within the days of, we thought those orders were coming and now they're not. Mm-hmm. And now we're dating those things out. And it was instant information to, quite honestly, which is kind of scary to say, is to panic when you need to panic.
Exactly.
And do what you need to do. And,
right.
it stems all the way back to the beginning of what Michelle was doing and tracking every week. It's like, oh my gosh, this week's not going to be what I want to hit my salary. I'm going to do something about it now. And that was exactly what we had at our fingertips was, oh, wow, this year has, this week has gone off the rails.
Right.
And we could see the projection of this isn't going to change for 6, 8, 12 weeks. And it clearly didn't. And knowing having really, really accurate, completely updated information about the business the moment the world was changing under our feet was invaluable.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I literally am mentally sitting back in the spot where we were like April 1st, April 5th, April 6th, April 15th, April 20th, because the same as us. We're looking at the numbers every single day. And, for a business that has a cost to be open number above $200K and to finish right. April out at $60,000 in sales, we were just like, whoa, you know mm-hmm. what I mean? And to your point, Alex, it was better to know it then, because if we were not a company like yours that if our company is like yours, we track our numbers. And if you were a company that doesn't track your numbers, you're 100% right. Vin would not have known to call Amex that first week, because right. It would have been, we're not going to make an Amex payment, but it's already due tomorrow. But he literally called them. New Jersey closed Saturday, I think it was March 20th or 21st. He called them Monday. You know right. what I mean? Because like I said, we prepay everything. So we had, hundreds of thousands on this. And he's just like, and literally when you're like the first to call and say, hey, long time user of your card here, lots of history, I'm reliable, I'm gonna need a favor, buddy. You know what I mean? Like yeah. You get it. You're not the 20th in line to call in July when Amex is now bleeding out the nose, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I credit Alex, like he got right on all the advice we were getting from your podcast, like just get on it. And we knew what we had to get on and what we didn't have to get on right away, what we wanted to watch.
Right.
But yeah, we had just, committed to him walking away from his engineer job, his salary, and coming and joining the business. And then a global pandemic falls in our lap, and we're like, oh, how do we get through this?
Yes.
And we're through it, and we're on the other side. I hear you. April was dark. April was such a dark month. But now, as we're
It's only
approaching,
funny in hindsight.
brain is mush. I don't remember the month of April.
Uh,
I literally like such mush. But now as we're heading into October of 2020, and we're coming out the other side, and things are much different than they were 6 months ago. It's just interesting. You have to be able to move quickly. You have to be able, in a small business, one of the benefits is you can be nimble, you can be flexible. And that was something we were able to do. We were able to change on a dime as we needed to.
Well, and I love that right there. You have to be able to move quickly, but you cannot do it if you don't have all the information in front of you. If you have to
Right.
now start to gather it, because to your point, when we looked at those, when we started to get to April 6th, April 10th, April 15th, and we were just like, oh, this is insanity. Yes, he had called Amex immediately. He called whatever vendors he needed to, immediately negotiated terms. Immediately. Like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing we did was we immediately looked at our own personal finances, because that's also as organized and it is also able to access it. And we came right back to the table and we're like, okay, Lou and Vin will go with a 10% cut. And then it was 2 weeks later, like, Lou and Vin will do 20% cut. Then it was like 6 weeks later, like, okay, Lou and Vin are off the payroll. And we literally had a projection where if things didn't change, we could keep all of our employees on payroll if Vin and I came off through January. But that wasn't like, well, maybe if we come off until January. It was like literally a numbers calculation.
Right.
Take you two off till January. It saves this amount of money. Everybody else can stay on payroll for 6 weeks. 8 weeks, whatever the numbers supported. And we internally, Vin and I, know that January and February are the lowest producing months of the year without a pandemic. So I looked at him after we left that meeting with our partner and our business coach, Eileen, and I said, so we both know that January is going to be April, right? And he's like, yeah, pretty much.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then it didn't happen. Then because we leaned into the marketing and we pounded it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. So I think we were off payroll a month. You know what I'm saying? And then we're already paying ourselves back for it because it is a business. It is not a hobby. It's not a donation to
Right.
TCSNN Corporation. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's a company and we work for that company, right?
And we did the same thing for a very short period of time. We took ourselves off payroll for a very short period of time. And we were luckily able to get, back on it when the numbers started to improve because we
Right.
were tracking it, because we were looking at it. Like without that information, it would have just been guessing.
Right.
And you can't get like,
Which makes
it's
the anxiety 10 times worse because it's already real anxiety because the numbers, you're not making money and there is a
right.
pandemic. So now it's like,
Well,
it's
and
like oil on a fire, right?
obviously the reason Alex left his job was because I was projecting to make a good bit more in the business, and we had projections to double our revenue, and and things happen and things change, and I think we will be so much stronger having gone through this in our first official year of working together. Just
Yes.
nuts. But we without that information, it was already a very stressful time. It still is, but it was a
Yes.
very stressful time. And without having our arms wrapped around what the numbers were personally and professionally, I don't know how we would have survived it. It would have been just pure chaos.
Right. Terrifying. So, Michelle, before I ask the two of you to explain a little bit about the business measurements and all of the things that are in it, I know we've talked a couple of times how were projecting that you would cover your own salary. Then you projecting that you will cover Alex's salary. I know that you have colleagues listening saying, how do you do that? How do you sit there and say, I need X amount of clients? We know how we know how to do that. I think everybody knows to say, well, 4 more clients like this earns me this much money. But how do you, like, I know at WindowWorks the things I do when we're slow and when we need to fortify and we're looking at under projected numbers. What do you do as an interior designer when you need to beef that up and to create that pipeline?
So in between the stage of me leaving my job and Alex leaving his, I made a full-time hire in between. I started with part-time people or contracted people, and then I moved to a full-time junior designer. So there were iterative steps to get there and different amounts of revenue needed at each step. When it was just part-time freelancers, that was different from hiring a full-time designer, which is different than a full-time designer plus Alex doing, back end business strategy. Alex, you might be able to better speak to what all goes into our projections in terms of expenses and money coming in.
Yeah, so I think there was, we've had a lot of evolutions of this. It started out, very simply, really only kind of looking at what money had come in over the last, so far this year, and doing kind of, pretty rudimentary, a fraction of the year extrapolation of what we could see the money continuing, assuming that trend continued. And what's really blossomed is we found places that simple math no longer worked. It's like, well, am I having a ramp up over the last few weeks, or am I ramping down over the last few weeks? And it really kind of turned into what is, now wrapped into some of the proprietary elements of business measurements that takes your most recent history of, true bank transactions, money in and money out, and is giving you a rolling projection that changes all the time, and it kind of shows you how it's changed over the year. But it really is using your recent transactions. And one piece that we add on top of it, because as you can imagine, our business measurements has all the bells and the whistles. We also do a lot of analytics and tracking on all of our website contact forms. So that's the way that all of our clients, no matter how they reach out to us, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, phone call, email, however they find us, word of mouth referral, everyone is asked to go through our contact form on our website, and we track who comes in, how they found us, how many we're getting per month filling out that form, what budget did they say they put in, what kind of a client did they turn into? Were they this perfect ideal, put up on a pedestal client, or just kind of a, keep the business open client, or a dead end that really went nowhere? So the combination of looking at our recent transactions and true, just like cash flow, quite honestly, coupled with how our inquiries are looking as far as new clients coming in. Michelle has an initial call with them the moment they fill out that form, and we get a feel for, okay, this client's above average, this client's below average, and we're able to track that. So, and clearly that's projecting our next 6 weeks to 6 months, depending on the size of the client. So that's giving us this rolling projection out of like, well, things have slowed a little bit. We didn't get quite as many ideal clients over the last few weeks that we had hoped. We're adjusting our projections because of that. And then clearly, doubling down on how do we have, newsletters that are targeted to particular, clients that may have reached out. How do we create a very specific crafted message for just that person to get them to move forward? But that combination of historical bank transactions and our forms of inquiry and kind of categorization. Do we have enough people, in the pipeline, or do we need to go mine out of our, newsletter or Michelle's Instagram following? How do we go and mine those sources for new leads?
So interesting. And so the thing is, what you're telling me is, if you just completed a project for Mrs. Jones and her daughter wants to hire you, her daughter is going to feel like there's a relationship there because you just spent 6 months working with her mom, and she might actually call and say, hey, you just did my mom's project, I want you to do mine. You're going to say to her, yay, 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 and then go fill out my contact form, because that's how you're tracking the analytics. Or is that what I understood you to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in the beginning, when you're starting out and your confidence is a little low and you're trying to appease everybody, you're like, just answer their email or just answer their call. I can't have that discovery call in a way that I would like to without having the information in my contact form filled out. It's not a robust form. It takes 2 minutes to fill out. It's full of drop downs where they can select, their budget. But I need to look up the house. I need to see the scope of the work, what rooms you're trying to complete, and what you think the budget is, so that I can tailor my conversation to your needs. Everything we're doing as a design firm is customized to the client. And if their budget's tighter but workable, I need to have that conversation with them. Or if it's flexible and they don't know where the number should be and it's high, we categorize the clients that come in as, we put them in a few banks to determine what we could potentially get in revenue from their job. And that helps us manage our pipeline best when we know, when we could use the data that comes in through that form and know how that spits out into which category they fall into.
Interesting. And I heard you saying there, when you're lesser experienced and lesser confident, you were less likely to say to do that. And so now if somebody really does, I can understand if a stranger manages to get through to you by email or phone. You could say, "Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much for your interest. Our process is here, take this link and do my intake form." But when it really is that really we know each other. I've seen you 16 times at my mother's house. Do you still just say, "I love it. I'm excited, but this is how the process begins. Please fill out the form."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
if you feel like you're friendly with me on Instagram, but I don't really know much about you. Like, we get so many DMs from people who feel the connection to us, which is fantastic, but their account's private. So I don't know anything about them.
Mm,
And they DM me and say, interested in a job. I don't have their email address. I don't have their phone number. I don't
right.
know anything about them or the work that they're looking for us to complete. I need them to fill out that form because I need that contact information. 30 DMs later, and I have no idea who they were to follow up with them. I need your email so I can call you, so I can email you, or your phone number so I can call you when you reach out and then ghost me, but it's not a no and you're not a dead
It's
lead. And
bizarre,
I
isn't
want to
it?
I want to revive you. I need to be able to reach out to you. So we really try to, we'll get calls, and more recently it's been, calls out of the blue without filling out the form and interacting with us much prior. So I don't really know anything about them. Sometimes people forget to say what their name is and they forget to say what town they're in. And I know you have a thing about that on websites, not being able to find what the designer's name is or where they're located.
Oh,
That's true for us when you just call us out of the blue and you're just looking for information. I don't
right.
know what information to give you because I don't know anything about you
Right.
or your project. And
Right.
it's such a personal job. So I direct them to fill out the information on the form, and then we will have a 15-minute complimentary phone call, and I can give you the information you're looking for as opposed to guessing on what you need me to tell you or what I do need to tell you about starting a job with me. Hey, your budget isn't realistic, as
Right.
opposed to wasting time on the phone without having that information and not getting, an education from us on what it takes to do a design job.
Exactly. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So you guys have it locked down. So Alex comes in and he puts all this to a software platform, and now you have business measurements. And it's just like I said, just like Sarah and Tom. It's, hey, other designers could use this, and so now you have made this available to other interior designers. And what I'm wondering is it's one thing for someone like yourselves who have Michelle comes to it with the background of understanding how much it empowered her to do her job in corporate by having the information to analyze and transferred it right over. But if I'm a designer and I've never done any of this, I have not tracked any of my numbers, how does it work with business measurements? Is it a buy and go and see you go figure it out and get somebody to help you? Or is it something where because if I don't know anything about tracking numbers, just having the tool to do it really doesn't help me, right? I need to understand. How do you guys work it over there?
That's a really great question, because I feel like we've missed the biggest piece that business measurements developed over time, which is important as it relates to where Michelle started with I'm typing single thing into Excel every day, 10 times a day, is business measurements. And I'll answer your question directly, but the piece that is important is it's all completely automated. You're literally just looking at, just like the reports Michelle used to get at her corporate job. They literally they can come to you in email whenever you want them, or you can go and find them, through the portal. Literally any single day of the week, multiple times a day, and it's always up to date with everything that your business is, is transacted and purchase orders and things through that day. And there's the core elements of it don't need your input at all. It just literally, if you wanted to know your projections of income and taxes, if you've become a client of Business Measurements, whenever you want that, you can know, I think I'm going to pay about this much in taxes. I'm going to earn about this much total, this much expense, and I'm going to, me, the owner of this business, going to walk away with this much money at the end of the year. So it is completely automated. So it sounds like it's a daunting task to say, oh my gosh, well, I'm already struggling to find time to prep for my meeting with my accountants and QuickBooks bookkeeping and categorizing expenses. Really what Business Measurements came in to do was to live in between a lot of these existing systems, collect information from different places, and present it in a way that's comprehensive. So, information that might come out of your client management software, whether that's MyDoma Studio, Ivy, you name it, and combine that with your banking information to give you an automated, updated. So, you're not having to go do 2 days worth of work to get a clear picture of your finances. So that's a really, really important factor in the value that Business Measurements provides. But to your point of how do you come on, and what do you you end up just having to set this up yourself? And the answer is absolutely no. The way that I operate the business is, if you come on as a client, it turns into a discussion between you and me to kind of get a feel for your business. We work out some of the account linking details, clearly making sure all the QuickBooks and banks can sync accordingly, and then I do a bunch of work to help kind of create this back end, both an archive of history, also really making sure the automated links are set up, and then as a part of the ongoing monthly fee that's associated with it is whether it's technical support or discussion of what you're seeing, really is more of a a service type model than it is just like here's your software and set it up yourself. It really is kind of a consulting model to a certain extent of helping you understand it, and in the intro really walking through all the specifics of what you're looking at. It really kind of boils down to a blended P&L. So there's a lot of information on it. There's graphs of recent histories. You can kind of see how you're trending over time, as well as some cash balance sort of statement of accounts type information. But it is not for you to set up. You have to do some data exports to help me get that set up. But ultimately, the goal is this is something you're offloading to someone else. Think of it as you've got an automated CFO that's helping you get you this information, and it's with me to help support it.
Whoa. So I just had the aha of the hour here. I understood that this was a more sophisticated version of Excel and what Vin does at WindowWorks and what Michelle was doing there. And I got that it extrapolated and gave a whole lot more information, but I still thought it was a manual inputting of the information. What you're saying is, if I'm a MyDoma Studio user and I'm a QuickBooks user and I've got all of my product buys in MyDoma Studio and all of my invoicing to my clients and all of that, and I've got all of my other stuff and everything going on in QuickBooks, you're just connecting it background in the la la land, and then it spits out the information?
That's exactly right. And it's combining those things in a way that, quite honestly, QuickBooks, I'll say, maybe giving it more credit than it deserves, could, but the fact that it's got all of the accounting legalese and all of the things associated with making sure all of your accounting things follow the laws and you're filing taxes correctly, all of that stuff is still totally needed. This does not attempt to overwrite either MyDoma or QuickBooks at all, but it is sitting in the middle that says there's a whole pile of information in MyDoma Studio, there's a whole pile of information in QuickBooks. I can't spend every day looking through every single line item, everything. I need that top level, where am I at right now? And that's what Business Measurements does, is literally straddles in between, collects information from both, and gives you the pulse of your business. Even though it's not quite as detailed as either one would be. You're not going to be able to go see, what was my utility bill from January. Your you still need, QuickBooks to be able to really detail
Right.
categorize
Yes.
everything. But you also kind of just I want the answer quick, like just, plus and minus, what's the net? Okay. That's a super valuable piece of information,
Wow.
even though it doesn't have all the detail that other sources do.
It sounds like it's Vinny. That's what it sounds like to me. like we put all
His
the
brain.
information and everything, and then Billy and I look at him at our Monday night meetings and go, "Can we afford to buy a truck?" And then he'll be like, "Well,
Exactly.
right."
But it's not the expensive, Vinny. And I, it's a marriage saver is what it is when you work with your spouse, because I'm a very impatient person, and I'm like, I just want to know how we doing. We good? Like what's
Yes.
that number looking like? So we have, a Monday morning meeting every week, and in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I can get a pulse on the business because it's all been pulled together for me
Wow.
prior in that software.
Just like being back in the corporate again. You get your
Yeah.
reports.
So, but I'll tell you what, those reports, they were a lot more time they took to analyze them. This is just like, what's our projected revenue? What's our projected income? What is our projection of sales per client? Like, we also have built into it, because there's different facets. We bill hourly, and we estimate those hours up front. So if I said, oh, it's a 100-hour project, how many hours am I in on that project? Because I need to keep track of that. So to your point of your hub that you have, it's my hub, and it tells me at a moment's notice when I need it, what the answer is. And again, it allows me to not work in the business so much and work on the business, because it doesn't take me hours to pull that together. It takes me a click to get that information quickly.
Yeah, Alex, I love your term of automated CFO. I think that's a pretty interesting thing, because that's what it is. It's like whether I sit down with Vin, Billy and I sit down with him. We know all the numbers are there, but sometimes you just want the person or the device now, the software, to just give you, like you said, the top line. Like, where are we at? What kind of decisions can we make? I did not understand the entire time that it was an automated thing. I really thought it was one more place that we as business owners had to plug the numbers in, but that it just gave better detail. And so if you're already tracking your numbers, your purchases, your hours, your all of this in MyDoma, and you're already putting all of your operating expenses, you're doing everything that you should be doing in QuickBooks, you are connecting it in the background electronically, and it is now doing what the corporation did for Michelle. It's taking all of this data and putting it back out into the columns and into the types of reports that you need to have that top view of the financials.
We'd all love a VIN man.
Yeah.
We'd all, every small business would love that on their team. And obviously there's things he does outside of this software, but we can't all have
That's
that.
right.
And when you're a small team, like I had missed my financial department, my marketing department, my photography department, all these things I had as a corporate buyer. This gives me some of that back. It gives me the financial portion of it back. I'm not in the position to have that as a staff member under my company, but I can still get that information when I need it.
All right. I love it. I think it's amazing. So how do the designers find out about this, you guys?
So the best way right now is we have both a Facebook page and a group. No matter which way you join, I can push you one way or the other to get. But the group is the best way. Where all the detail, you can see the visuals of really what this is, and the specifics of kind of, clearly we've been talking about it, but it's hard to describe a visual report. But the Facebook group's the best place. Business measurements for designers. And that's the best way to get in touch with me to hear more about it. We can certainly talk more and help understand where you're at in your business and how this could help give you the right information. And like Michelle said, there's multiple facets. It's not you don't need the all singing, all dancing, perfect golden solution. There's kind of the you want just you need that financial number, and that's it. You don't need the rest of the integrations. So you may not be, for instance, using a MyDoma Studio or other software. That doesn't mean this isn't right for you. Quite honestly, if you're making money and spending money in a business, this can work for you. There's different ways we need to adjust how it syncs. the more you've got your finances in order, the better. Things like, your own business account, business bank accounts, and all of those things certainly help make the process a little bit easier. But there's a lot of ways that pretty much anyone at any point in their business evolution can benefit from the baby designer, just barely starting with their first jobs to, millions of dollars of revenue. This still has application.
Okay, so that's a good clarifying point. You don't have to be using MyDoma Studio or any other project management software in order for this to happen. Most people are using some sort of QuickBooks or FreshBooks or something. Are we saying that at minimum that, or you don't even need that? There is a place for you to enter data for yourself if you're not capturing it anywhere else.
Honestly, if the bare minimum entry level is if you are receiving money and spending money, ideally out of one bank account that you can say everything in this bank account is my business, that's all you need. You don't even need QuickBooks.
Oh, I'm forgetting that it's the bank account is just like I was in that model. It's my, like, for example, MyDoma, QuickBooks, and the bank account that are getting the data is being pulled from. So
Correct.
It could just pull from the bank account data is what you're saying.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
You would lose the, Michelle mentioned hours, by client, profit by client. All of that categorization comes through what you're inputting in those other softwares.
Right.
And there are add-ons that allow you to summarize that at a company-wide level. But if you're just saying, like, I'm starting out and I have no clue what I'm going to make at the end of the year, I have no clue what I'm going to have to pay in taxes, and all I have is, the way we started with an additional, personal bank account on the side of the rest of our other personal bank accounts, and that was the Dash Work account. If you've got that Dash Work account, this is set up for you, and we can grow and expand it from there.
Okay, love it. And what did you say the name of the Facebook group was again?
Business Measurements for Designers.
Business Measurements for Designers. All right. Well, let me tell you what a power couple. I love it.
Lots and lots of advice from your podcast.
Yes, definitely. And I'm fishing, but could we get a smart lady?
Oh, absolutely. You're 100% right. You definitely get a smart lady and a hashtag smart guy. No question.
The VIN comparison was flattering, but I needed to hear you say
it. That's it. No question, Michelle. Hashtag smart lady. Bang.
Little fishing expedition there.
Oh, no, that's awesome. You earned it, sweetie. You definitely earned it. I love it. I think it's so awesome the way that you run your business intentionally. I know from experience, this is the path to being successful, is to not put your head in the sand and to face the numbers and understand them and learn them. And, like Lisa Gilmore said on an episode recently, once she did it, it was Finance Fridays. It's her favorite day now. It's like right. Once you really get it, it is something that the power is there. And as we said, many times during the course of the conversation, is there's tons of things that give us anxiety and create stress for us as business owners. But, and knowing the numbers, whether they're good or bad, is not another stressor. It's the path to clarity. It's the path to being able to make those moves. So, oh my goodness, so excellent. So Business Measurement for Designers Facebook group. If you want more information, head over there and introduce yourself to Michelle and Alex and see if maybe this is for you. I love it. Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing all of this with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thank you.
Pretty darn fabulous, right? Yeah, I know. And I know that Michelle isn't the only one of us out there that has experienced this feeling of being overwhelmed and having to track our finances and worrying about making the big mistakes when it comes to taxes and everything else. And I also know this because I get a lot of emails with designers saying, what do I do if I don't have a VIN man? Right? And I thank my lucky stars every day that I have the Vincenz. I mean, for more reasons than just that he knows how to do the finances. I mean, honestly, right? But I've even had to learn how to manage the money for my own business. So I feel your pain. And I still do way too many things for the podcast with a notebook and a calculator, I have to say. Because I'm not a numbers girl, but Michelle, who was a numbers girl, and she's a smart lady, okay? And as a successful buyer for a major corporation, when she was transitioning to running her own interior design business, that was when she got to the point where tracking every single order, 50% balance due, sales taxes, 50% deposit, blah, 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 it just became too much for her. So the difference with Michelle and many of us is Michelle knew what to do. It just became too difficult to do in an efficient way. Okay. So, the other thing is, like many designers, she was having trouble understanding how much of the money in her bank account was actually hers to spend. And so that's where it's interesting. Alex watching Michelle struggle, and then comes him with his engineering brain, and he knows there's got to be a better way. It reminds me of the show with Sid and Shay McGee. Shay was killing it as a designer, but she was also drowning with all the little things involved in running a successful business. So just like Alex, Sid recognized that his expertise could make Shay's life easier. So yay, 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 all day long to the men and women out there that help the creative ones of us in the relationship do what we do better. That's what I love, okay? And I also love that Alex and Michelle is that as the data needs arose, instead of giving up, Michelle and Alex work to find a solution, okay? And that this software, they keep creating it, iterating it, doing it, rinse, wash, repeat, right? That's what Alex said about it. It's like making it better each time, okay? And, I don't think I have to ask you why it's important to see your business in the big picture financials, but, the first thing is, let's be real, it helps you live in reality, right? If you have $25,000 in your bank account and you're thinking, yes, now I can go rent a studio space, well, you could have a very rude awakening at tax time if Uncle Sam comes knocking and there's nothing left, right? So I think so many of us struggle to see the reality of our numbers. And then that's what happens. We get into this vicious, anxiety-ridden cycle of earning and spending, but it's not serving you. And it's not helping you create a stable, viable business, okay? So you need to release yourself from the stress and the fear associated with your financials. I mean, that's what you have to do. And you don't release yourself by putting your head in the sand. No, 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 no. You release yourself by really, really learning it and committing to understanding it. Because when you do that, in addition to reducing your anxiety and giving you peace of mind, knowing the reality of your numbers also allows you to be ready for opportunities. Okay? Think about show houses, marketing, masterminds, continuing education, all of these things that can do so much for your business, that can help you grow your business in so many fantastic ways. But you have to have a handle on your money so that when the opportunity comes along, you can say, yes, I want to do this for myself. Yes, I want to do this for my business. And I know I have the capital. I know I have the finances in order to take advantage of this opportunity right now, right? And I have to say, right here, ever since I can remember, WindowWorks has been saying yes to Kirsch, right? These guys are the real deal. They've been in business more than 100 years, and they know how to take care of the trade. Visit Kirsch.com, see the latest quality hardware and styles from traditional to modern for your next drapery project, okay? So, what do you think? Is it time to get real with your numbers? All right. You can do a couple of things. You can go back to my first book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business. You can check out the second book, A Well-Designed Business to Power Talk Friday Experts, and take a look at Michelle Williams' chapter and Peter Lang's chapter, okay? You can join us for the party that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, and you can meet Kim or Liddy, who has a chapter on finances in the third book, all right? There's lots of things that you can do, and you can also learn more about Alex and Michelle's software by joining their Facebook group, Business Measurements for Designers. Business Measurements for Designers, okay? And if you are one of the business people out there that does have a handle on their finances and does know maybe that you need to make some moves by the end of the year in order to, mitigate the taxes that you're going to spend, all right? I got news for you. Tickets for Luann Live this year for February 2021 are going to go on sale in December, okay? So this way, if you need to do some last minute investing so that you can put the hard-earned money that you've made to improvements in yourself and your business before the tax man gets a handle on it, then you're going to have the opportunity to do that, okay? So, but first come to the book launch, luanneniagara.com/launch. All right, what are you going to do today? You're going to decide to be excellent, right? Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luanneniagara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.